cold throw sales. Like, we want our candles to smell good when a customer picks it up. Well, then don't recommend that they do this to your candle. I don't understand. Well, no, I can't believe I've never done that before. Hey everyone, I've been getting asked to do another reaction video to some TikTok candle making hacks. However, this edition is going to be a little bit more about candle business hacks, although I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to get fed as far as what videos show up, so it could be a combination of a little bit of both. I'm not sure. We're going to find out together. And another quick thing, I left my SD card. I don't have it with me, so I can't use my normal mic. So hopefully this turns out okay, and you guys can hear me all right. With that being said, welcome back to the channel. My name is Wade with Black Tie Bar, and let's go ahead and get right into this.
5 things that I did wrong when I first started my candle business. Number 1, when I first started making candles 2 years ago, I did not properly test them. I am doing a much better job of that now, and I am fully testing and doing it the right way. Please
pause real quick. Excellent tip. I talk about this all the time here on this channel, obviously. This is a really good lesson learned. And I know everyone's always talking about just get started. Just get started and you can figure things out as you go. While for the most part, yeah, I agree with that. Like, that's how you learn and that's how you grow. Testing and doing proper testing early on is definitely a must, because if you mess this part up and make candles that either A, don't perform, or B, are dangerous, well, then you're kind of getting off to a really bad start. So I think this is an excellent tip. I'm glad that she, as well as many others, learned this along the way. But the sooner you can learn this, the better. Start testing right from the very get-go, and you'll be on much better track. All right, let's see what else.
Learn from my mistake. Do not launch if you have not fully tested your candles. Number 2, I was not marketing to my target audience. I'm still learning how to do that, but I think I'm doing a better job now. But please figure out who your target audience is and cater to those people.
Absolutely. All right. Another really great point. So she's like 2 for 2 here. This is excellent advice. Marketing your candle business, marketing your products is just as important, if not as important, as the products themselves. If people don't know about your products, they're not going to buy them. So you've got to do a lot of work when it comes to this. This is the part that really stops most businesses from growing, because they don't invest enough time into the marketing of your products.
Number 3, I was not adding in labor into my cost of goods. Please add in your labor. I'm learning to do that now. Comment if you want part 4 and 5. Sorry, ain't my TikTok friend.
Okay, well, we don't get part 4 and 5, so we're only getting 3 of the things that she did wrong with her candle business. Now, this one is the one that I'm going to say I half agree with. So I'll give her 2.5 out of 3. But this is just my thoughts on this. So she's talking about adding your labor of making your candles into your cost of goods to help you price your candles correctly. There's yes and no. You should consider time spent when pricing your products, of course. Like, you want to make sure that you're making enough money, not only to profit, but that it's worth it for you. However, there is a big difference between your pricing including your labor versus your cost of goods including your labor. Now, I know this is really confusing, and I have another video planned about this topic specifically. Normally, as a business owner, you're not allowed to include your own salary into your cost of goods sold. Now, it doesn't mean you can't increase your prices to accommodate for wanting to make more profit, but it's not a deductible expense as far as cost of goods sold. It's not. Only wages paid to employees that help you in your production count as cost of goods sold, not your own salary. So again, I know this is probably clear as mud, but make sure you're pricing your products so that it's worth it to you. But when you're doing your Schedule C, if you're a business owner, your cost of goods at the end of the year, you can't include your own time, your own labor as a business owner, your salary into those cost of goods. You're not an employee of your company getting paid wages. It's very different. So if I were to hire staff to make my products for me, their wages would be included as part of the cost of goods sold, part of the expense to make those candles. But you as the business owner, it's not. Your expense, your salary is different than wages paid to employees. Hopefully that makes sense.
During summertime, I am adding Cool Shield bubble wrap in every box to make sure candles are not melt when delivered to you. It is an extra step, but I care, so I do it. Packing, packing.
I like the little
adding
bags.
Little touches as always.
Looks good. All right. So yeah, you can do this. It does cost money. This is definitely more expensive than your normal packaging. So if you're going to do this, make sure that your cost of shipping and packaging reflects that. So you're going to want to pass that. You either have to eat that or you have to pass it along to your customers. So you definitely can do it, but it is going to cost more, just so you know. Also, in my personal experience, I don't really know how much of an impact it's having. If your candles are going to sit out in someone's front porch in 100-degree weather for a couple days, I don't know that this is going to add a whole lot of benefit for you. For the most part, I don't have a lot of issues with candles melting when I ship them, even during the summer. Now, again, if they're stuck in a hot vehicle over the weekend, or they're sitting on a front porch for a couple days, sure, it's going to happen, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. So what this boils down to is definitely try this if you want, but you have to kind of weigh the difference here. So is it worth the expense of doing this on every single product or every single order, or do you just want to address it when it does happen? So there might be times we need to ship out another order to a customer. There might be times where you get a complaint from a customer and you have to work through that. But would you rather deal with that when and if it happens versus definitely paying for an extra increase on every single order? That's going to be up to you to decide, but it is an option for sure.
This may be a super random tip, but after talking with other candle makers, you never know who it can help.
Okay.
Use an empty pen to help stick the wick in. The Band-Aid also comes in handy when you do a couple hundred in a row.
This is not a new tip at all. Anyone that's been making candles for a while probably already aware of this. You can use a pen tube. They actually make wick setters that do this for you. The Band-Aid on the thumb was kind of funny just because if you're doing it over and over, of course, it's going to kind of wear on you a little bit. But if you were asking my opinion, this definitely works in a pinch if you need something quick. But if you're really going to start making a lot of candles at a time and you want to get something that does a perfect job, perfect center every single time, and you like different colors and maybe you want different ones for different jars, let me show you what I use. So I use these ones from Norden Candle Supply. This is for a double wick one. You can see here, you put 2 wicks in it. It sits right on the jar and boom. Oops. I've got a wood wick one, normal jars that I use all the time. I got a wick setter for those. It places them perfectly. And then it just sits right on top and locks in the wick perfectly. And again, multiple colors. Like this is the way I would go. Now these come from Norden Candle Supply. I've talked about them on the channel several times now. So if you want to check them out, there will be a link in the description below. That is what I use. I've 100% switched over to them probably, 4 or 6 months ago. Absolutely love their products. Check out their website. They got all these different colors and options. They have stuff for every single jar. So that's what I would do for me. But if you're in a pinch and you don't want to go to this route yet, you can definitely use a pen tube.
Sometimes a seam just doesn't come together very well. It's a pretty easy fix though. First thing you're going to do, run a bead of glue right down that seam.
Not sure how I
Then
accidentally
rub that
added
glue
this to,
into the seam to make
listed
sure it
videos,
gets all
but
the way in. Wipe off all the excess, and I mean all
TikTok's
of it.
spying on me.
Just
It knows
want
I've been
what's
doing
in
it
the
before.
seam. Now we're going to take a sander with no dust hose collected and run it right over that seam. Now all
know
that
this is not
sawdust is
candle
attaching to
related,
the
but-
glue that we rubbed into the seam, and it's the same wood as the top that we're working
Oh,
on.
wow.
Never knew
That's
there
a
was a
good
seam
idea.
there at all.
That's a good idea. Okay, I know that had nothing to do with candle making, but I've been working on new flooring for the store, and I have a couple little things like that where I might need that assistance. So I don't know. Ironically convenient that this popped up for me. Next up.
If you're packing and shipping anything this holiday season, then you need to see this great trick. I have this size box, and it needs to fit candles that long. So all I'm going to do
bigger
is
box.
cut halfway down the end flaps. I've already done the other side to speed things up. So I've already done this side, you would do both. And then, voila, you have made a
What?
longer box. If you're
No.
packing and shipping...
Hold on. We're going to try this. Okay, what'd she do? Both sides. Flip it over, do it again.
Voila, you have made a longer box. If you're packing and shipping anything this holiday season, then you need to see this great trick.
Okay, moment of truth. I don't understand. Well, no, that actually worked. Sort of. You gotta tape it. You gotta tape the edges a little bit, but pretty snazzy. I can't believe I've never done that before. Next. Yeah, that definitely works. That's a fairly common tactic as well. As long as you're using a container that is food safe, chemical safe, you'll see that description whenever you're purchasing them from like Amazon or whatever. Especially beneficial if you buy your fragrance oils and then you want to dye some of them. You can pre-mix the fragrance oil with the dye. Actually, let me show you what I mean. Okay, so for example, I've got these containers that have a pre-mix of fragrance oil, like this is a spiced cranberry, this is like a mistletoe fragrance, pre-mixed fragrance oil with the dye. Pre-mixed fragrance oil with the dye, and this one is another kind of pine fragrance that is already mixed with the dye itself, and these are safe to hold the fragrance oils. They're also a lot easier to pour out of than the giant jugs that they normally come in. Now, what she had is actually even better for pouring in smaller amounts. It's got a smaller cap or smaller nozzle on it than something like this would, but this is still very, very easy to use. So yeah, great tip. Definitely nothing wrong with that. Yes, 100%. So I recommend this all the time. You don't have to use tile. You can actually go to a craft store like Hobby Lobby or Michael's or something like that, and you can buy the cardstock that have the designs and the patterns on them as well. That's an even cheaper route. You can get those for like less than $1 a piece, or, well, they're cheaper than that, like 20 cents a piece or something. So you can design whatever kind of backdrops you want and get really creative. Now, there are companies that actually make, I'm not going to say who they are, but they make basically photo backdrop tiles and platforms for you to use, but they are really, really expensive. When I mean really expensive, I mean really expensive. So it doesn't work for most people. It just doesn't. So if you're looking for a cheaper way to do product photography, then I would use some cheaper materials like this, like tile from your home store, or cardstock from a craft store, and then you can use like a photo light box to really make sure you're getting good uniform light, and just all around looks great and gives you a lot of flexibility at a good price. And I've actually got one of the photo light kits that I use linked in the description below if you want to check that out. I gotta go back. How do I go back? Oh, I hate TikTok. Well, anyways, I know roughly it said too small of a wick is going to be an issue, and too large of a wick is going to be an issue. Yes. This one says add fragrance to the right temperature, 170 to 175 degrees. Lower temp fragrance doesn't mix fully with the wax. Higher temps fragrance will burn off. Both of those are not really exactly true. They're sort of myths. Not that the advice in general is not good. Like, this is a really good starting point, so I don't think there's anything wrong with the tip, but there is some more nuance to it. The temperature that you can add fragrance oil and how well it binds with the wax really depends on the type of wax you're using. The compound and molecular makeup of different waxes is different. Almost knocked over the fragrance oil. And because it's different, it's going to behave differently. With some waxes, you can add fragrance oil at a lower temperature. Other waxes, you should add it at a much higher temperature. It's going to depend on your wax, so start with manufacturer's recommendations or the supplier's recommendations, and then adjust if you need to. So while this isn't necessarily 100% true, in general, it's not bad advice. As far as fragrance oil burning off at high temps, that's really kind of a myth as well. The moment the fragrance oil starts getting mixed with the wax, it lowers the overall temperature like that. I mean, it becomes a whole new compound. It doesn't just start burning off. It actually starts becoming part of the blend like immediately. So just follow your manufacturer and your supplier recommendations and just tweak it if you need to. That'd be my advice. Okay, so a little mixed feedback on this one. Yes, having holes and craters and ugly tops is pretty common with a lot of blends of waxes these days, specifically waxes that have soy in them. So using a heat gun is a very common approach to smooth out the top. And it does work, but just be careful. Use your heat gun on low, take your time, go nice and slow and steady. Do not get too close to the wax. You don't want to scorch it or anything like that. Not to mention, you don't want to blow wax all over the place. As far as the frosting on the side, a heat gun is not going to solve frosting issues. It may temporarily help. It might make you think it's solved, but frosting is something naturally that happens with the way that soy compounds and the molecular structure of soy crystallizes. And it has more to do with the combination of that with the fragrance oil than it does anything else. In fact, adding excessive heat and heating and cooling and reheating and cooling periodically over and over and over can actually make frosting even worse because it causes it to go through that crystallization issue even more than it would the first time, which is why that if you have a perfect looking soy candle and burn it the first time, it always looks kind of terrible the next time after it cools. You're just going to do the same thing by reheating the outside of the glass. Now, it can help temporarily and it can make it a little bit nicer looking for a while, but you're really just delaying the inevitable usually. Now, she pointed out that you want the air bubbles to release by heating up the sides. That's a different thing. Air bubbles are not what's causing frosting. Air bubbles are causing sinkholes, craters, maybe the bubbly look texture on the outside of the jar, but that's not what's causing that white crystal frosting pattern. So she said this was to solve frosting, but then showed releasing air bubbles, which are two totally different things. I do agree you want air bubbles to be released. And there's a couple ways to deal with air bubbles. Either one, pour hot enough where the air bubbles can escape on their own as you're pouring the candle, or if you're going to pour cooler, which can actually help a lot of other issues, you got to pour very, very slowly so that you don't get any air bubbles trapped inside. So as far as letting air bubbles out, that's definitely not a bad idea. I would recommend that as well, but that's not frosting two different animals. All right, last one.
Can I extinguish my candle with a lid? Yes, you can, as long as the lid is not flammable. However, the vapors from the candle being extinguished can get trapped in the candle and make the candle stinky, so I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, bye! Can I extinguish my candle?
Oh, I love her. Okay, well, I like her a lot. She's fun. Excellent all around. 100% agree. This is pretty much exactly what I say to people. Can you? Yes, assuming that the lid you're using will allow you to do that. Be careful. And she's also 100% right. I don't do it either because it traps in that smoky smell inside the candle. So the first time I ever experienced this as a business owner myself, and this was like 10 years ago or whatever, I had a family member that bought one of the candles, and it was like a pumpkin type fragrance. And the way she put out the candle every time was to put the lid on. Well, that's fine. But every time she did that, it was trapping all that smoke. And so then one time I was over and I saw that candle sitting there. I was like, oh man, I wonder how they're enjoying this candle. And just, you know, as a candle maker, what do we always do if we see one of our candles? We pick it up and smell it. So I pick it up, smell it, and I was like, oh God, this is rank. This is terrible. I asked her, I go, is this what it smells like all the time? Is there something wrong with it? I said, you should have told me there was something wrong. She goes, no, there's nothing wrong with it at all. I said, well, why does it smell like that? She goes, I don't know. I said, well, what do you do? Or how long do you let it burn? She said, a few hours at a time. And then she showed me that she puts the lid on afterwards. And I was like, well, you're trapping that kind of charry smoke like into the candle. It literally smelled like burnt pumpkin vomit. I mean, it was terrible. So my advice is don't encourage customers to do that. I don't do it myself. You can do it, but it just hurts the quality of the candle's scent, in my opinion. So, you know, everyone's so concerned about cold throw all the time because cold throw sells. Like, we want our candles to smell good when a customer picks it up. Well, then don't recommend that they do this to your candle because it's going to start smelling horrible after enough times of doing this. So anyways, that's my thoughts. So yeah, she was a lot of fun. I hope to see more videos from her. She's a hoot. All right, so this was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for putting the request for more of these. I'm glad to know that you like them. With that being said, I'm gonna let you get out of here. Check out one of these next videos on the channel. And if you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing as well. And I'll see you around in future videos. Thanks.